Hello, thank you for joining my session today where I will be speaking about Microsoft Teams and how to effectively use it to help you manage your projects and collaborate with your peers. My name is Haniel Croitoru and I am lead consultant with To The Lead. Today I'd like to share with you our own experience with Microsoft Teams over the last 6 months. We've been using it to effectively manage projects and communicate with our clients. And I'm hoping that through our learnings, you will be able to better learn how to use the tool and leverage it for your own needs. Keep in mind that some of your own practices might be a little different. There's lots to cover, so let's get into it. Whether you're a project manager, project lead, or have worked with one in the past, you'd find that most of the time is being spent in communications. The type of communications are very common across projects, such as project plans, action items, logs, reports, dashboards, that kind of information. But what differs is the medium, how frequently they're being created or shared, who the audience for the communication is, as well as the triggers for the communication. And many studies have shown that communication by itself can be attributed to either success if done properly or failure of projects if done inefficiently. And those can be impacting the cost, the timelines, or the scope of the project. The remaining 20% are typically spent in collaborating between the different team members. And what's important is to make sure that your team members are getting the information that they need at the right time in the right format. So if somebody's looking for certain documents, they are going to be getting the one that they need. It's going to be the right version, it's going to be the right format so they can work with it. Now, if you do a reality check, you would find that many organizations believe that they communicate well and that they collaborate well amongst the team members. But in reality, that is not the case. You will, once you start digging in, you'll often find there's duplication of content, poor access control, so that some users have either too much or too little access to the information. Finding information is very tedious. Communication is often happening in silos, and basically lack of project consistency. So what can you do to help with those communication and collaboration needs? Well, if you've been using Office 365, you'd know that there are a lot of different apps available to help you with those specific needs. As a matter of fact, today there's about 24 or more applications available. In fact, every time I present this specific session, I need to update the slide because there are new apps available on the app launcher. Also, Microsoft continues to evolve and enhance their offering. And when you go to the roadmap link provided at the bottom of the slide, you will see a lot of work that's happening on an ongoing basis. Now the question comes up is, which tool do you use for what specific need? You can be communicating in a lot of different ways, you can be or collaborating. For example, if you need to present to your stakeholders the status of your project, do you use PowerPoint or do you use Sway? What about note-taking? That can be done using either OneNote, you can email your notes, or you could even use Word. For your charting, you could use Power BI or Excel. And there's more and more examples of those where there's more than one tool that is available. So making that decision can be a little bit difficult, and keeping up with the changes can also be difficult. So one thing you do want to keep in mind is, rather than looking at all the different tools that are available, is ask yourself as a project manager, what is the kind of information that I need to track, and how do I collaborate with my team members in the best possible way? And again, some of the main areas that you would need to track are things such as your tasks, your budgets, the documents that are being shared amongst your team members, if there's any sort of logs, dashboards with your stakeholders. So that is the typical type of information that you need to consider. And then you want to ask yourself is who's going to be getting it, where is it coming from, what format it's going to be available to you, and what format it's going to be shared with others, and how often is this content changing. So some very common questions that you want to keep in the back of your mind when you're trying to answer which tool to use and how to approach the whole communication and collaboration question. Well, since this session is about Microsoft Teams, let's see how this tool can help us with our specific needs. Microsoft Teams was released about 7 months ago as a competitor to a tool called Slack. It integrates both communication as well as collaboration functionality into one unified experience. Today, Microsoft Teams is available to all the Office 365 business, enterprise, as well as education users. In the next 5 sections, I'm going to be diving down a little deeper into the specific functionality before switching over and discussing some best practices for project managers using this tool. Let's have a quick look at Microsoft Teams. So when you open up the application, you're going to basically be introduced with a left side navigation that would offer you access to the different section, a listing of the specific entities that you're looking at, for example, teams and channels, and then the main panel is going to give you all the content. On top of the main panel, you're also going to have access to different tabs that will provide you access to some important information. For your project management needs, you'd want to consider having teams for specific projects and then have channels to keep your specific conversations or content streamlined that way. So there's not going to be too much clutter across the different channels of communication. The top left is going to provide you activity, and this is where you see a quick update of all the information that is pertinent to you. Whether you've been mentioned somewhere, somebody liked a message you've typed, or a conversation that you've participated in before and somebody is replying to it. Below that are the chats, and this is where you can have one-on-one conversations with people outside of a specific channel, or you can even have groups of people having conversations. Then we have the teams and channels, which I've just discussed a moment ago. Meetings. This is where you can book meetings and join meetings for specific channels. And you can also send them out, and this is something which gets synchronized with your Outlook. And files. Files is basically a listing of all the documents in Teams, and then you can also look at specific areas within each of your channels or each of your teams, the documents that are stored in there. And then going all the way to the bottom, when you click on your icon, you can set your availability so people know whether you're busy or unavailable. Saved will give you a list of all the items that you have checked off to follow up, which I'll discuss a bit later. And then some basic settings. For example, if you prefer to have a dark layout as opposed to a light layout, and what language you want to use for the application. So that's a very, very quick overview of what Microsoft Teams is. What I'm showing right now on the screen is the web version of it. It is also available as a standalone application, as well as a mobile app for Windows and for Android and Apple phones. Microsoft Teams lets you communicate with your peers both in an asynchronous as well as synchronous fashion. In asynchronous communication, you can be sending a message and the recipient will be responding to it whenever they are available. So, for example, instant messaging, email, or letters are good examples of that. Microsoft Teams offers you several options for asynchronous communications. As you can see on the screen, you're able to have one-on-one chats or with multiple people where you can invite them into the conversation. And it's typically a text-based conversation, but you can also make it a little bit more fun by adding multimedia into it. So for example, I want to praise my colleague for a job well done today. So I'm just going to say, great job on the call today. It's as simple as that to add the meme or the images directly into the chat. So next time he's going to be logging in, he'll be able to see this information. Another way to have asynchronous conversations in Microsoft Teams is by using the Teams-based conversations. You can imagine each team representing a project, for example, and then there's going to be channels within each project. So right now I'm inside of the Contoso IT project or team, and under the service strategy channel. And there's a conversation stream which is similar to the one-on-one chats I mentioned before, but this is now for anybody who has access to the same team who's able to participate. Again, you can see there is rich content that can be added directly into the conversation to make it a bit more fun. And as I provide information or as I type something into the channel, everybody who's on the channel will get notified if I mention them or if they're following the channel. So I'm going to say here, for example, Alan, great information. So now when Alan is going to be logging in next time, because I have actually mentioned him, he's going to be notified that that there is a new message for him waiting inside of the channel, and once he goes in, he'll be able to find that information. Now, there may be scenarios where you want somebody from outside of Microsoft Teams to contribute content into the conversation. For example, an external client or even somebody inside the organization who doesn't have access to the specific team wants us to provide some information. So one way to do this is by actually getting the email link, the email address, to each channel. So in this particular case, I'm going to open it up here. And as you can see, there is an email address which typically has the team name followed by the channel, or sorry, the channel name and then the team name. And then there's going to be an email address that is unique for Microsoft Teams to that specific channel. So if I were to now email anything into that email address, it will end up inside of the conversation stream. Synchronous or real-time communication takes place when the recipients and the sender are essentially available at the same time. And this is happening when you're doing an audio or a video conversation such as Skype. If I want to have a real-time conversation with one or more of my team members, I'm able to initiate either an audio or a video chat directly from within the chat window. If I want to have a conversation with all members of a team or a channel, I can actually go into the meetings option and schedule a meeting for a specific channel. So in this particular case, I'm going to go and select under the Contoso IT, the same channel I mentioned, Service Strategy. And I'm going to call this Just for Fun. And as you can see, it will automatically invite everybody who is a member of the channel. In this case, it's only me, but also I can invite specific individuals. So I will invite Megan. And I will schedule the meeting now. It'll show up inside of my listing. And you can see right here it's been scheduled. And then once I go into it, and anybody else who's joining the meeting will be able to see and participate. So right now, because this is using a demo tenant, all these people are actually fictional, so we will not be able to see them. But you can see that we have similar controls to the Skype for Business, where we're able to share the screen, share video, and also do some whiteboarding. One of the recent changes introduced into Microsoft Teams is the ability to invite external users into your teams. If you want to enable external access or guest access, you have to go into the portal admin for your tenant, and then under settings and service and admins, you can go into the Microsoft Teams option, and then for the unlicensed user, enable access for them. Once that is saved, you can then invite your external users. Inside of a team, you can actually go into the team settings and look at who are all of your members and owners of the current team. If you wish, you can also add additional people directly from within the team by entering their name and then selecting enter. So I just added her, and now she's a new member. You'll be able to see her name in the list. When you create a new team, you have the options to specify what type of a team you want it to be. There are essentially two options. A private team is one that is only visible to the specific individuals you specify, and only they can see the content and participate in the conversations. On the other hand, a team that is public can be seen by anybody inside of your organization who has access to Microsoft Teams and also participate in conversations and view the content. So far we've spoken about communication in terms of chats between individuals or groups. But what about other type of information you might be interested as a project manager, which relates to communication but is not coming from individuals? What if you want to know, for example, how your development team is progressing in their development, in their testing in Visual Studio? You may want to know the number of bugs that are being logged, or maybe you're interested in other information coming from other types of sources. So this is where the Microsoft Teams integration comes into play. Microsoft Teams offers two different types of integrations. The first one are tabs that can be added into every channel. So in this particular example, besides the conversation and the files which come with every channel, you can see monitor inventory. So let's click on that and see what appears. So you can see this is actually an Excel document that is directly shown within the channel window. Repairs, on the other hand, is a Microsoft plan that you can interact with and change the content, again, directly from within the channel window. When you click on the plus sign, you will see options for adding additional tabs for Microsoft or other third-party cloud-based providers. Suppose I wanted to add a Trello board directly into the channel. I can do so by clicking on the Trello link, and after authenticating, selecting the specific board that I want to display. Once selected, you will see that now there is a new tab at the top of my channel window, and I can actually see and interact with the Trello board directly from within Teams. This is creating for a great unified experience where I don't actually have to go into different services or different screens for that matter to see the information that matters when it comes to my projects. Another type of integration in Microsoft Teams are called connectors. Each team can have a number of connectors enabled where information from specific services can be configured to provide content directly into the conversation feeds. For example, if I want to have tweets show up directly within a channel, I can configure the service and give it either a hashtag or a follower. And once the information is provided or configured, that content will automatically be fed into the channel. So I will actually try to include one that is gonna hopefully show very quick results. Okay, so this one has now been configured. So now when I go into my conversation feed, you can see already that it tells me about the Twitter feed that has been enabled. And then as new tweets show up, they would automatically be fed into this channel. Bots are semi-intelligent applications that let you ask questions in normal language to get answers for specific topics. In Microsoft Teams, you have the ability to integrate various bots for your needs. Suppose the business development team does a lot of travel and they want to be able to do their own reservations quickly without having to contact another individual or looking at another site. You have the ability to add a bot directly to your team by selecting the bot section and then listing. You can get a listing of all the different bots that are available. It is also possible to create your own bots and integrate those into Microsoft Teams. In this particular example, let's look at one that provides you information for travel. Kayak, here's one. So I'm going to add it into my team. It's going to take a moment. And then once it's available, I can actually go into the conversation and simply by typing kayak, I can ask a question. So kayak, can you find a flight to New York City from Toronto tomorrow? So what Kayak does is it takes the information, tries to interpret it, and then it will come back to you with an answer within a few moments. As you can see, the bot has come back with a number of possible options, and then depending on the bot that you're integrating, you have the ability to perform other actions such as click on it and book the trip directly from the bot, or create any sort of alerts, for example in this case, where you can be notified. But as you can see, the experience is very simple. It's much more natural than having to go into filling out standard forms or having to contact somebody else to do this type of work. The last topic I wanted to quickly touch on before discussing best practices is mobile needs. Pretty much any organization today has at least some users who are working on their mobile devices. These could be cell phones, tablets, and it's really important to make sure that these individuals remain productive regardless of their location or device that they're working on. Lucky enough, Microsoft Teams offers you a specific app that provides an almost complete experience on your mobile devices. What I'm showing you right now is the Microsoft Teams mobile app for Android. It works virtually the same as the iOS system as well. And what you can see is a lot of the functionality in the user experience is very similar to the desktop application or the web application. So right here you can see I have a history of all of my chats. I can actually go into a specific one and view everything that's discussed. I can see my teams that I'm involved in and go into any of those details, any conversations. The meetings that I have scheduled or previous ones, as well as the history of all of my calls. I can also place calls, video calls, or audio calls directly from the app today to participate in conversations with one or more individuals. So as I said before, anybody who uses Microsoft Teams has the ability to remain connected regardless of where they are. In fact, notifications are also sent to the mobile device, so whenever somebody is mentioned or are following a conversation or a feed, they get notified immediately on their mobile device. Okay, so far we talked about the needs for the project manager, and we had a chance to look at Microsoft Teams and what it has to offer. In this final section, I'm going to look at some specific examples and best practices on what you can do as a project manager to really leverage Microsoft Teams to your best needs. First of all, your conversations, try to keep them inside of your teams and your specific channels. There is really no point to leverage emails internally within your organizations, as that conversation is typically going to be more siloed. By having in the teams, anybody who is a current member or future member of your teams will be able to review and to get the information in those conversations. In addition, anybody who's not in your organization or who's not part of the team can still email the channel if they have information that needs to be provided. The next one is about access. So you can set up your teams to be either open or private to specific users, as I've mentioned previously. If it is a specific project and you want to limit it, you can still add users from internal or external to your organization. Just keep in mind that the moment that you grant access to a team, all the content in all the channels is available to those users. You can also control who in your organization can create new teams or manage them, and also who overall has access to Microsoft Teams. The third one is leveraging the activity feed. So the activity feed again shows you all of the conversations that either have mentioned you or have been replied to or liked by somebody where you have been part of that conversation. The reason it's good to leverage that is if you're not actively looking at Microsoft Teams, you may not be aware of everything that has been happening that is relevant to you. So by going to the activity feed, you can actually review all the information that is there. Now with the activity feed, it's important to remember that once you read a message, it is marked essentially as read. So if you find that there is something that is of interest to you that either you want to review again later on or are not able to review immediately, you should tag it. And that is the little symbol right at the top right corner of every message. Once you tag something, you can then go into Teams later on and review it as part of all of your saved conversations. You can read them again, and then once you're done with them, you essentially untag them so they disappear from that list of tagged messages. So this is really important when you're not, again, actively looking at all the conversations. The next one is connectors. So out of the box, Microsoft Teams will give you conversations for your team. It will give you OneNote, it will give you a file share in SharePoint, but any other content that is relevant to your project that you want to track, you should try to include through connectors. And again, things like Visual Studio, even Gantt charts or other type of information you can include in your team so that your team members don't need to go to multiple places to get the information that they want. And similar to that are also the tabs that allow you to pull information from different sources and display it together. So leveraging those few practices can really help you manage your project effectively in Microsoft Teams, where all of the conversations and almost all the content that you need to share and collaborate on a regular basis live in one place and give you a consolidated experience. Thank you for attending my session. I hope you found it informative. If you have any further question or would like to discuss things further, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to continue the conversation.